Welcome to the Investor Coaching Show, a podcast to help you get an insider's view of the financial world and escape common investment traps. We look at the financial news of the day and help you make sense of it so you can relax about money. And here's your host, Paul Winkler.
All right. We are back here on the Investor Coaching Show. Paul Winkler, Jim Wood. Interesting. Iranians under attack are afraid, angry, or cautiously hopeful. It's all over the place right now. And that's the type of response you'd expect. People would be all over the place. Iran's capital panicked. Tehranis rushed to grocery stores to stockpile food. It's like a Nashville in a snowstorm.
Bread and milk.
And water. Schools closed. Workers rushed home. Long lines formed at gas stations. It's like the 1970s. I mean, do you remember that, Jim?
Oh, yeah. I had a little Toyota Hilux.
What that was like?
Yeah, and I just remember it was my first vehicle, and so it was like right out of the gate. Yeah, little Toyota Hilux.
Really?
Light blue, had these little headlights on the hood, made it look kind of like Shrek. It was
the first my first car was a piece of junk. My second car was too. A Dodge van, a 68 Dodge van with a leaf spring. Those of you who know anything about vehicles, leaf spring on there. You bolted to a shovel. What? So how did I discover that? So I'm needing to change the tire one day, and I'm cranking up the tire and trying to crank up the van, and the darn tire's not coming off the ground. I'm like, what on earth is going on? And I look underneath and I go, oh, the leaf springs you bolted to a shovel, and the shovel was helping make sure it didn't go through the floorboards. There was a hole because it was rusted out. And I had the slant 6 in there. I learned how to work on engines. Good grief. I had to replace that engine 3 times.
I'm just going to nod and pretend I understand what you're talking
what
about.
I'm saying?
I have no clue.
Oh, you have no clue. Okay. So yeah, it's funny because my sister's like, how did you learn to fix stuff, Paul? Dad was never that way. Well, Dad was cheap and I couldn't afford anything, so he wasn't going to buy me anything. So, I basically got vehicles on the cheap.
Yeah. That's how you learn.
And really, I had to learn how to fix everything. Oh, my goodness. That was an amazing vehicle. And my second vehicle was an AMC Pacer. We called it Mr.
Classic.
Bubble. You ever see those things? It looks like a big old bubble. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that was funny. So yeah, and I just, why am I bringing this up? It's just because it reminds me so much of the 70s and just the economy. And you had odd and even days and the gas pumps. And if you had a certain license plate number, you got to go to get gas on one day. And if your license plate ended in an even number, you went on a different day. And
which means people were switching license plates.
I don't know. We played by the rules.
Yeah.
I grew up in a family, we played by the rules. So maybe your family did that, Jim, not mine. So, when we talk a lot about, investing and getting, how to invest, what to do. What do we do during times like this? And typically there'll be people out there that tell you need to change this. You need to get safety around your money. You need to go and maybe there's an opportunity now. You'll get the other side of the fence. Like I played that little thing earlier where one guy is saying, for the big investment company, buy financials right now. You need to buy financials. And the next guest after him says, no, you need to short them. It's a bad thing. You need to get out of that type of thing. One of the things that really gets me, because we're big on education, on investing, understanding what am I doing? How do I approach markets? What are the two philosophies of investing? Markets work versus markets fail. Market efficiency versus inefficiency. Sometimes if somebody gets really nerdy with me and they really want to understand this, I talk to them about the two different types of market efficiency. How do we reduce costs in the investing process? What are the costs? Most people think it's just the management fee on your mutual fund. How do you measure risk? Risk is something that can be measured. If you can't measure something, you can't control it. How do you maximize expected returns for given levels of risk, and so on and so forth. But what do people often do? They often get information about investing from people that are selling investment products, investment firms, mutual fund companies. Certainly, you go to work for a company, a 401k provider will be actually in a meeting telling you, hey, you need to invest in, this fund right here. And if you don't know what you're doing, just use our target date funds. So typically that's where you're getting information.
I just know, like on the broker-dealer side, whenever you got research, it amazingly showed that the company who sponsored it was the best place to invest.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that reminds me of Kessler. Andy Kessler had a book years ago, and it was called Wall Street Meet. And it was fascinating because you have two different sides of investment firms. You had the research side, and then you had the investing side. And on the research side, they would be pushing something and say, hey, you need to invest in this, you need to invest in this. While privately, the same company would be out there saying, no, stay away from this. This is terrible. Don't invest in it. And go, well, wait a minute. It's the same company, and they had what they call the Chinese wall, and they shouldn't be giving information back and forth, but they were. And it's a fascinating read. But one of the places that I see commercials for all the time is you need to go through our investing club. Join our investing club for information about how to invest your retirement savings. And I'm watching TV this week, and no joke, Jim, not you, Jim, but another Jim was actually saying this. They were talking about his investment club, Jim Cramer's investment club. And here's what they had to say. Check this out.
Jim's got his monthly club meeting in a couple of hours, and you've been talking about it all week. I got to know what you're going to say.
Okay, well, look, I'm going to...
So wait a minute. He's going to tell him what you're going to say, even though you haven't paid to be in the club?
It's a club, but it's very exclusive.
yeah, it's kind of funny, isn't it? So I got to know what you're going to say. Carl Kent says to him.
Jim's got his monthly club meeting in a couple of hours, and you've been talking about it all week. I got to know what you're going to say.
Okay, well, look, I'm going to talk about people who are whining.
No, wait a minute. Before he says that, Jim, how many stocks have you heard him say makes a diversified portfolio?
No less than 5, no more than 10.
So there you go. Okay, so 5 to 10 stocks, you're diversified, right? I've heard that as well. So just check out what he says next here, okay?
I know what you're going to say.
Okay, well, look, I'm going to talk about people who are whining, people who are right, and people who are wrong, and I'm going to go through the portfolio and be very hard on myself. There are 3 or 4 stocks that I literally say I'm wrong on. I've got to do something about.
3 or 4 stocks out of 5? That I was wrong about? And I joined this club for what reason?
And they're big companies, and I think you got to listen. I really urge people to...
You got to listen. Well, wait a minute. I listened when you told me to buy those stocks.
You join the club, though, you probably get a hat.
Sign up, because this is a very unorthodox meeting where I say that I am wrong on this one. I have to change.
Well, I mean, given the dispersion, the number of stocks...
You ever see the Jon Stewart interview?
Oh, yeah. He just crushed him. I would suggest that people
really
want to see Jim Cramer squirm.
It was, yeah. And it really is, so there is a very distinctly different, and the reason I want to bring this up, maybe you're that person that likes this idea of trying to pick stocks and determine where to be, when to move between things, buy on dips, so to speak, as they say, or try to figure out when the market's going to go down, when it's going to go up, get out before it goes down, get in before it goes up. That is a very different philosophy of investing. When we talk about investment philosophy, there are 2 very distinct investment philosophies out there. I used to have a workshop about this, as a matter of fact, and it was choosing your investment philosophy was the title of the workshop we used to teach all the time. Haven't done it in years, but probably ought to go back to it at some point and start teaching that again. There's one says that markets are efficient and that things are properly priced. And that returns, historically, you go back through years and decades of the stock market, returns, throughout history have been very generous without trying to figure out which companies to invest in or which areas of the market and when to change things around. The other philosophy says that I ought to spend my time figuring out which companies that I should be in, which companies are going to be up and coming, which companies I should be jumping into, which companies I ought to be staying out of, which countries are going to be doing well in the near future. And this is what we typically see when it comes to investing. It was like that question that I talked about a little bit earlier that came in to that Market Watch question, where the guy says, I'm going to be shorting this, I'm going to be buying that, I'm going to be taking this, I'm going to be changing that. That is one way of investing money. But if you look back and you say, which way has historically been much better, you would clearly, easily find that market efficiency is a less expensive way of doing things, and it is clearly the winner historically, because 93 to 97% of professional managers failed to match market returns over the past 15 years.
And they are paid 6 and sometimes 7 figures to be able to do that. And the fact that so many of them fail miserably is just astounding. And then and those are the people with all the information, contacts, computers, and staff to throw at the problem, and they fail. But then as people still have the hubris to think, I'm going to be at home on my computer and have a high probability of beating the market myself.
And they're not stupid people. But there are two very distinctly different ways of doing that. Now, if you're a person that says, I want to try to figure out what's going to be the next thing, I want to pick stocks, time the market, we would be the last group of people you'd ever want to talk to, because it would drive you crazy when we aren't making a move based on what you think is going to happen next. It would drive you absolutely crazy. But recognize you're in a very small group of people, maybe 5 to 10% of professional managers beat the market in any 15-year period. And here's the thing. If you are one of these people that does beat the market, don't let it go to your head, because the likelihood of you repeating in the next period of time, studies show it's bad. It's terrible. It's awful. People don't repeat. And it is the mistake we see over and over again. And investing in that particular manner, in my humble opinion, is not investing. It is gambling. Going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. I've got something I want to talk about after this. It's a date night talk that you want to have with your spouse that I think this is a really good little piece out there for people that are just thinking about, hey, let's plan for what if one of us isn't here? What are some of the things that we ought to talk about? Hey, just a note to you podcast folks, we just came out with a retirement income guide, and I'm super excited about this. There are all kinds of myths about taking income in retirement. People worry about running out of money, and rightfully so, because a lot of these myths can actually cause that. Now, the myths that you typically hear about, number one, dividends, living off dividends in retirement, real estate, life insurance as in a retirement investment, and annuities and interest-bearing accounts and target date funds. There are all kinds of things out there. What I want to do is put something together that walks through why those things are problematic, number one. Number two, the other thing that I wanted to do is walk through the evidence-based research on taking income in retirement. And we got a ton of data going all the way back to 1900. Hey, what's the logic behind it? And it's intensely logical. So we put that together, and all you have to do to download that, making it super simple, just go to paulwinkler.com/relax, and you can actually get into that very easily right there. So I would urge you to do that. Check it out, because I think you're going to really like it. paulwinkler.com/relax. All right, we are back here on the Investor Coaching Show. Paul Winkler, Jim Wood, paulwinkler.com. Big talk, of course, during the show. Interspersed all the way through it, I ran. And that's just absolutely fascinating. I watch this stuff, and I don't change my investment portfolio based on it. I don't move things around or do anything like that. So the key to being really super, super, super diversified before stuff like this happens, you just don't know. You don't know how these things are going to play out. So making sure that you own a lot of things. That's why I always rarely get somebody that says, I just own a few stocks, or I invest in gold or Bitcoin or, whatever. I just don't go there. Just simply because you don't know. You could have all of a sudden, you could have stability break out and something that you thought of as a safe haven just drops in value significantly. So it's really, really hard to figure this stuff out. One thing that I want to talk about before the show's over today is there was Wall Street Journal had an article that I thought was certainly worth talking about. A date night talk every couple needs. And they're talking about, you got husband, wife, and, they passwords, online accounts, those types of things. And the idea was this, and this happens, I see this a lot in families. Division of labor in a marriage will often you'll have one person that does the finances. We often tell, let's say if it's the husband always does the finances. And sometimes I have the wife is just the one that does the finances. The husband can't stand it, doesn't want to deal with it. And I tell them both get in there because we're talking about goal setting. We're talking about what you want your life to look like. And I want you to both understand because there's going to be one day that one of you is not going to be here.
I make that point a lot in terms of if the one person that has all the knowledge goes away, then that leaves the other one very vulnerable.
Oh, extremely. And I've seen where one person passes away and the other one didn't understand it. Yeah. And the one that receives everything sabotages it and does something that ends up being really bad. And I just think, oh my goodness, if you're in this, there's one lady that comes to mind. If your husband saw what you were doing, he'd have a stroke.
Yeah, I've seen people that are well-intentioned but giving just horrible advice.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And it's a lot of times the financial advisors are they're less educated than you recognize. The bar to actually call yourself a financial advisor is extremely low. It really is, folks. We have one of our guys in our office actually pass the exam to do that in 3 weeks. Literally, and now he can, and after 3 weeks, he can call himself a financial advisor. It's just criminal, in my humble opinion. So just be super aware that your spouse needs to be involved in the process. It says division of labor often results in one person handling the banking, subscriptions, passwords, and more. That can leave the other person in the dark on how to locate and access the family's accounts. When she got married in 2014, she had debt from medical schools. I'm talking about this lady who's a Chicago pediatrician. Her husband offered to handle their living expenses while she focused on paying off her student loans. So late last year, she was reading a book called Strangers, a memoir of marriage, about a woman disentangling the family finances after her husband of 20 years abruptly leaves her. So that's what the book was about. Now, this lady says, I don't have any concerns about my husband running off, but the book did get me thinking about how little she knew of their monetary logistics. If something happened to her husband, said she wouldn't know where to begin handling the digital subscriptions, bills, and investments. She says, I was overwhelmed by the number of things that I didn't know. And I think, yeah, how true that can be. She told her husband, I want to get up to speed. She jotted down some questions. I thought this was really wise. She jots down a bunch of questions. What accounts were the streaming services and the athletic club membership paid out of? Who held their life and disability insurance policies? To whom did they make car payments? And we have this book that we give to clients that ask for it. It's a family love letter.
Right. And I was just going to say that I actually went through that with my wife probably in the last, 3-4 weeks. And, she's got all the passwords. She knows where to go. I mean, bank accounts, credit card, just et cetera, even the work stuff.
Yeah.
So just she knows if something happens to me exactly where everything is.
Yeah, perfect. And, the passwords and knowing where all of that information is, you can have that stuff put into a safe. A lot of people that advertise safes on this radio station, it might be a good idea to have a safe that you put all of this stuff in. And then if you have passwords, obviously you want to change them from time to time. It'd be a good thing to go back and just review that and make sure no passwords were changed.
Yeah, those password lockers can be really effective tools.
Sure.
In terms of that way the one you have to remember is the one to log on, because literally you can have hundreds of passwords for websites over the years and everything. Impossible to keep track of all of them. But something like that, one password, you log on, the other person has access to that one, and they can get everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's and some people hate those things. I like them. I use them. Personally, we have some things, and I think highly of them. Our computer people think highly of them. So make up your own mind as to what you feel about those places that you actually have all your passwords in one place. But anyway, so she said this. just the idea of getting together and doing this, I think, is super important. She says the exercise was empowering. And I think that is so true. I always tell my kids not to put things off, to do things now. I like it. Delay gratification. And yet there are these things lingering in my brain. You just have to rip the Band-Aid off. Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Well, I just wanted to touch on one thing, too. As part of that process is check your beneficiaries on all your plans, all your bank accounts, things like that. You hear horror stories of, somebody gets married, but they they had their plan before they got married, and the wife or the husband gets disinherited. I mean, and these are real stories that really happen to people. So know who your beneficiaries are, update them.
Yep, I've seen that. And it's just a couple of last things that she said in this article I thought that were really good. Ensure authorization. Even when you have joint accounts, the bank might consider one person the primary account holder. Make sure both are authorized to talk to the bank and conduct transactions. Do a trial run. Whatever your partner would do in a given month, flagging fraudulent charges, transferring money, you do it yourself. Try it yourself while they're still there. Just get up to speed what's happening. Write a note. It said one person composed what he calls a one-page annually updated death note for his wife, detailing who to call, what to do if something happened to him. We've actually had clients say, if something happens to me, they write it in their will. Call Paul. I've had it happen many, many times. Make it a regular date. Get a quarterly meeting over the account changes and update passwords and documents. Get everything in one piece of paper. Know where everything is, what's going on, because there may be that day that you're not around. And like I said, I like this for kids too. I like kids to know these types of things, because a lot of times kids do rely on their parents for advice and guidance on these types of things. So anyway, I think that's a really good idea. A date night. If you have to have an excuse for a date night to get together, this is a good reason to do that.
Maybe not the most romantic thing, but
hey, that's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Okay. Paul Winkler.
Important.
Investor Coaching Show. PaulWinkler.com is the website. So if you want to find out how to get with any of us, the website is the place to go. You can get on there for a 15-minute phone call. You got questions about Medicare. You got questions about Social Security. You got questions you want to run by us on the show. Go to paulwinkler.com/question or /questions, or you go to content. The other thing you can do is get on there and look on the website for the questions under there, and you want to ask us something here on the show, do that. Go to paulwinkler.com, go to content, and you can do that right there. So lots of stuff on that website. Hey, this is Paul Winkler. Hope you enjoyed today's edition of the Investor Coaching Show. If you want to learn more about what we do, go to our website, paulwinkler.com. Until next time, I'm Paul Winkler, reminding you that I believe that more educated investors are more confident investors, and confident investors are more successful investors. Have a great one. Advisory services offered through Paul Winkler, Inc., an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Paul Winkler, Inc. does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation.